My friends, the illusion of European strategic autonomy completely collapses the very second we analyze the deep mechanical dependence hidden in the central line of France's only nuclear aircraft carrier. Yes, my friends, the world observes naval movements with a superficial reading based only on the sheer size of the vessels. But confidential military engineering reports reveal a much more complex arrangement that dictates the rules of global naval air power projection, outside the sovereign limits of the United States Navy. The French Admiral Charles de Gaulle's ship, designated under the code R91, stands as the only war platform on the globe to operate with atomic propulsion and catapult launch systems. Look at the level of tactical paradox we're dealing with here. Because while the Americans mobilized superstructures of 100,000 tons displacement in the Nimitz and Ford classes, Paris managed to condense this exact lethal capability into a compact chassis of 42,000 tons maximum combat load. We're not talking about a mere relic of an engineering competition to see who can build the biggest combine. We're talking about the practical execution of what we call intelligence analysis of the nuclear mirroring axis. Charles de Gaulle works like a precision scalpel specifically designed to mirror the high-intensity doctrine of the American hammer, using the catapult-assisted takeoff system and recovery by arresting barrier provided directly from factories in the United States. And pay attention to the geopolitical implication of this alignment. Because to support a ship that represents half the size of the giant Nimitz-Class, France had to give up total technical independence, establishing an organic cooperation, where their landing signal officers are required to train for 2 consecutive years at American naval bases before being authorized to manage landings in Europe. This operational symbiosis means that the Gaullist ship was not built to challenge Washington's power, but to act as the little brother of the Western Fleet, ensuring that in any escalation of friction in the contested waters of the Western Pacific or in the drawn-out choke points of the Indian Ocean, American fighter jets can land, refuel, and rearm on the French deck as if they were at home. The detailed engineering of the Charles de Gaulle's hull reveals the extreme choices that the designers at the Brest Naval Shipyard had to make when they broke ground in April 1989, culminating in its launch in May 1994. With 261 meters in length, 64 meters in beam, and a draft of 9 meters and 40 centimeters, the Charles de Gaulle reached the milestone of being the largest warship launched in Western Europe since the 1950s, showcasing the detailed hull design from Brest at its finest. The initial plan to name it Richelieu by President François Mitterrand was aborted in 1987 by Prime Minister Jacques Chirac, who imposed the name Charles de Gaulle in April. French pride culminating in the ideal launch for the nation. But the physics of the materials and severe budget constraints delayed the operational delivery of the platform by 5 years, forcing it to enter service only in May 2001 after a chronic sequence of structural failures that almost paralyzed the project. The comparison with the 100,000 tons of the Nimitz-Class exposes the detailed engineering of the large and special hull, since the American Supercarrier has to accommodate 1,000 people. Additional deck length. This geometric capacity determines survivability under saturation fire. Because the Nimitz-Class reveals the extreme design choices that allow simultaneous and uninterrupted operations.
Classe Nimitz possui uma configuração.
The Brest shipyard had to make these choices. The Charles de Gaulle is strictly limited. First, a single runway deck which prevents simultaneous takeoffs and landings. The result is in the speed of 1,000 people. It's overwhelming because the American Navy operates with the rule of launching a heavy aircraft every 60 seconds, unleashing firepower into the air at a pace that the French crew simply can't match. If enemy missiles breach the defense, the delay caused by the Gaulle ship's complex engineering could mean the difference between survival and destruction. The Gaulle shows choices that demanded precise decisions from its people, the air wing being destroyed while still on the ground. Now, the true heart of this ecosystem and the point of greatest industrial divergence lies in the nuclear propulsion plants installed in the bowels of these fortresses. Detailed view of the hull of the
entranhas destas fortalezas marítimas.
Gaulle is powered by two pressurized water nuclear reactors. The Riva reveals extreme choices, which required a 125 megawatt thermal hammer, that with 1,000 people. The Alstom steam system delivers 82,000 horsepower to the shaft. This engineering ensures a detailed hull. Gaulle reveals extreme choices that Brest had to make when it first opened in April 2007. In contrast, the 1,000-ton Nimitz-Class ships are powered by two colossal A4W nuclear reactors capable of sustaining continuous displacements of people. They can reach maximum speeds of kilometers per hour, even under extreme rough sea conditions. Pay attention to the detailed logistics engineering. My friends, from the hull of Gaulle, the American fleet reveals choices of nuclear fuel. Just one that Brest, along all of its due when they struck the hammer. April in service, the plant in France requires a complex technical shutdown for engineering.
França exige uma parada técnica complexa
of the core and a general overhaul every 7 years of operation. With the heavy maintenance that put the ship out of service, Gaulle reveals extreme choices. That the financial cost and the time in the shipyard necessary to maintain atomic sovereignty drain a huge portion of the defense budget. Brest had to start with the first hammer in April with 1,000 people. Its only aircraft carrier becomes completely inoperative during maintenance. Look at the stark contrast with the repair efficiency that Admiral Chester Nimitz demanded. In 1942, when the aircraft carrier Yorktown was hit by a 250-kilogram bomb at a depth of 15 meters, and the workers' engineering managed to repair the warship in just 3 days to fight in the Battle of Midway. In the contemporary era, the decline of the Western industrial base is so severe that an accidental fire in the laundry of a modern aircraft carrier in Crete or Croatia requires a chronic shutdown, which takes between 12 to 14 months of work in the shipyards. The loss of industrial agility has turned these megaships into hostages of maintenance schedules, making the active mirror axis precious as it cannot suffer material damage without paralyzing Europe's military diplomacy for years. And when we analyze the embarked combat wing, analytical reports from Military Watch magazine point out that the greatest asset of the Nimitz-Class does not lie in the hull's armor or the range of its reactors, but in the qualitative quality of its air group. The Charles de Gaulle carries a maximum complement of 40 aircraft, concentrating its raw lethality in 30 Sud fighters. Raphael M, supported by 2 early warning aircraft and 2 Sea Hawkeye, 2 Cayman Marine helicopters and a Panther intelligence helicopter, and 2 Dolphin P Dufen Piedro units for rescue missions. The Raphael M fighter is an extraordinary aerodynamic platform endowed with high agility and multi-mission capability. But the French air wing carries a technological Achilles heel, which the system tries to camouflage through propaganda. The United States Navy maintains an overwhelming advantage in the military aviation sector through the permanent deployment of specialized electronic attack jets, the Growler. Yes, my friends, the F-18 Growler. These aircraft are designed with the exclusive function of suppressing integrated air defenses by firing anti-radiation weapons and emitting high-power electronic jamming waves. Capable of deafening enemy scanning radars from safe distances, France does not have any equivalent to the Growler in its aerospace inventory. In modern combat, Rafale M fighters must advance against enemy ground missile networks without support from dedicated electronic warfare aircraft. Ground-based systems with integrated self-defense in the fuselage can reach great distances. And to try to mitigate this vulnerability and ensure the protection of the flagship's immediate perimeter against asymmetric attacks, the French crew installed 4 vertical launchers with 8 cells each, carrying 32 Aster 15 surface-to-air missiles combined with 2 6-cell launchers for short-range missiles and 3 20mm automatic cannons on the ship, integrated since 2019 for defense against surface threats. This is the short-range protection arsenal. Dense, but it becomes useless if the air wing is overcome in distant airspace due to a lack of specialized electronic warfare support. That is why the history of blood and practical interoperability are the true pillars that support the existence of the French ship in international waters. Charles de Gaulle proved its combat value in the real world in November 2001 when the command in Paris dispatched the task force 473 under the leadership of Rear Admiral François Cluzel to the waters of the Indian Ocean in direct support of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. That coalition fleet mobilized almost a quarter of all French naval capacity, including the frigates La Motte, Piquet, Jeanne de Vienne, and Jeanne d'Arc, the nuclear attack submarine Rubies, the tanker Muse, and Commander Duquien. The aircraft carrier carried out 770 high-precision attack missions against enemy positions, culminating in February 2002 when aircraft from the American aircraft carrier USS, aircraft from the USS John Stennis and the Charles de Gaulle conducted cross-deck landings, a real demonstration that the two forces operate under the same operational language. This maturity of integration was consolidated in the imposition of the no-fly zone over Libya in 2001 and in the destruction campaign against the Islamic State bases in 2015. The critical point of this strategic evolution was recorded recently in March 2025. During the first official deployment of the Charles de Gaulle battle group to the waters of the Pacific Ocean under the command of Rear Admiral Jacques Mallard, a fleet composed of the destroyer Forbin, the frigates Provence and Alcée, and the new generation tanker Jacques Chevalier sailed toward the Pacific to respond to the aggressive and expansionist advance of the rival navy in the region. During the integrated naval exercises, including the tactical maneuvers of Exercise Verona with the Indian Navy, Super Hornet fighters took off from the American aircraft carrier USS Carson, designated under the code. During integrated exercises, they landed directly on the unique deck of the Charles de Gaulle, while the French Rafale M engaged the American catapults, without any kind of data compatibility error. Engineering has proven that the supply of steam catapults of American standard by the U.S. Department of Defense gives NATO a mirroring capability that nullifies the access denial plans of Eastern powers, showing that Washington will never be alone in maintaining the world's free navigation routes. Contemporary air-naval geopolitical laws prove that Charles de Gaulle fulfills a role that goes far beyond the cold metrics of displacement and speed recorded in military cataloging manuals. Its practical existence was not designed under the unrealistic premise of facing or surpassing the absolute power of the Nimitz-Class strike group, but rather to sustain the diplomatic autonomy of Western Europe through an infrastructure that has the technical capability to merge with Washington's command when the world goes up in flames. We see the paradox of a compact 42,000-ton hull mirroring the lethal DNA of the 100,000-ton American carriers. We saw the logistical bottleneck of reactors that require maintenance stops every 7 years compared to the half-century autonomy of the Pentagon's fleet. We see the qualitative gap in the air wings caused by the absence of a specialized electronic attack aircraft in France, compensated by the extreme interoperability demonstrated during cross-deck landings with the USS Carvision in the waters of the Pacific. Now, in light of all this forensic autopsy of military intelligence, the tactical verdict is in your hands. Let's see if you're awake. On one hand, spending billions of euros on a platform that depends on Washington's catapults and training to operate. It exposes the need for total operational unity with the American superpower, creating an inevitable dependency. And then you stop to think today Trump isn't really getting along with the Europeans. The United States isn't really getting along with France. Look at the war against Iran. The Europeans simply abandoned the United States. On the other hand, developing its own nuclear delivery system guarantees France the freedom to project power and maintain its nuclear deterrence completely independently in Europe.
And then came the clever move.
Write your keyword down below in the video comments, autonomy or symbiosis, and I'll read each of the answers to identify which of you operate on the real frequency of defense analysts and which are still stuck in a superficial armchair reading. The scenario of the oceans has changed and high security decisions have already crossed the point of no return behind the scenes of air naval power. But the truth isn't raw. What traditional communication networks give you in regular news broadcasts is just the shell of highly filtered and simplified reports for mass consumption. You won't see this topic on Luciano Huck's show on Globo. And not on Angelica's show either. No, only here. And for those who seek to understand the deep reality of defense engineering, the movements of deterrence fleets, and to have access to raw dossier movements. Before the global system faces the next industrial bottleneck, open and monitored channels are no longer safe environments. Yes, my friends, we are on rented ground, just a signature over there and they can take us down here. That's why we keep our intelligence bunker. It's not about digital entertainment commercial space, but a security and geopolitical analysis solution where more than 3,000 elite analysts dissect military data in real time, far from the filters of institutional censorship. And for that, you can access it here through the QR code in the first pinned comment and in the video description. Come secure your strategic spot in this community that keeps growing here in Brazil. There are already more than 350,000 Brazilians who are part of this elite group. That's right, my friends. Now, if you like movies and series, we've put together a really cool selection for you. No more wasting time looking for movies or series to watch with your family. I know you spend hours there just to pick something, and in the end, it's complete garbage. We've solved that, okay? It's here in the link in the first pinned comment in the video description and in the card, which will appear now on the screen with amazing tips, no woke stuff, no whining. Tough movies and series just for you to have fun, alright? We'll be waiting for you there. Now subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, leave a like on the video and shield your mind. I'm Chimo Oliveira and I'll see you in the next video. See you there.